The clock struck midnight, casting an eerie gloom over the deserted streets of Ravenswood. The town was known for its quiet nights, but tonight felt different. A chill ran down the spine of anyone who ventured out, and the wind whispered secrets. In the darkness, it was as if the town itself was sharing secrets, but only with those who dared to listen. In a narrow alleyway, tucked away between a run-down bookstore and a 24-hour diner, stood a small, mysterious shop. The sign above the door read "Midnight Confessions" in faint white letters. The shop was a local legend, a place where people came to share their deepest secrets with an anonymous listener. Some said it was a priest, others a therapist, but one thing was certain: whatever was said within those walls stayed within those walls. The door creaked open, and a figure stepped out into the alley. He was tall, with piercing blue eyes and jet black hair that fell to his shoulders. His name was Elijah, and he was the listener. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the cool night air, and began his walk home. It had been a long night, filled with confessions of love, loss, and deceit. As he walked, the streets seemed to grow quieter, as if the town itself was holding its breath. Elijah felt a sense of unease, a feeling that something was off. He quickened his pace, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. She was young, no more than 20, with long blonde hair and a look of desperation in her eyes. "Please," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have to listen to me. I need to tell someone." Elijah hesitated, unsure if he should get involved, but something about her expression stayed on his feet. "Okay," he said finally. "Let's go back to the shop." The girl nodded, and together they walked back to the Midnight Confessions. Elijah unlocked the door, and they stepped inside. The shop was dimly lit, with only a single lamp casting a warm glow over the small room. Elijah gestured for the girl to sit, and she did, her eyes fixed on his. "My name is Sarah," she said, her voice trembling. "And I think I've done something terrible." Elijah leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "What is it, Sarah?" he asked, gently. "What's troubling you?" Sarah took a deep breath, and the words began to spill out of her like blood from a wound. "I was at a party last night," she said, "and I met this guy. We were drinking, and things got out of hand. I don't remember much, but I think I might have done something I'll regret for the rest of my life." Elijah's expression was calm, but his mind was racing. What could Sarah have done? He leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "Tell me more," he said. "What do you think happened?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears, and she buried her face in her hands. "I think I might have hurt someone," she sobbed. "I don't know what happened, but I remember waking up in a strange room, with no idea how I got there. And there's blood on my clothes." Elijah's gut twisted with a sense of foreboding. What had Sarah done? He reached out and gently took her hands in his. "It's okay, Sarah," he said. "We'll figure this out. But first, you need to tell me everything." And with that, Sarah began to recount her story, a tale of secrets, lies, and deceit. Elijah listened intently, his eyes never leaving hers. As the night wore on and the shadows in the alleyway grew longer and darker, the hours ticked by, and the confessions continued to flow. Elijah listened, his expression calm and non-judgmental, as Sarah poured out her heart. He was the listener, the keeper of secrets, and he took his role seriously. But as the night wore on, Elijah began to feel a sense of unease. Something didn't add up. Sarah's story was fragmented, and there were gaps in her memory. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "Sarah, I need to ask you something," he said gently. "Are you sure you're telling me everything?" Sarah hesitated, and for a moment, Elijah thought he saw a flash of fear in her eyes. But then, she nodded, and the fear was gone. "I'm telling you the truth," she said. "I swear." Elijah nodded, but the sense of unease lingered. As the night wore on, Elijah couldn't shake off the feeling that Sarah was hiding something. He had heard countless confessions over the years, but there was something about Sarah's story that didn't add up. He decided to probe a bit deeper, trying to get to the bottom of the mystery. "Sarah, can you tell me more about the party?" Elijah asked, his voice gentle but firm. "Who was there? And what happened?" Sarah hesitated, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. I don't know, she said finally. I met this guy, and we were drinking. I remember dancing and then nothing. Elijah's eyes narrowed. What's the guy's name? He asked. Sarah's eyes dropped, and she mumbled something under her breath. Elijah leaned forward, his ears straining to catch the words. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't quite catch that. Sarah looked up, her eyes flashing with a mixture of fear and defiance. His name is Alex, she said, but I don't know his last name. We met at the party and that's all I know. Elijah's mind was racing. Alex, the mysterious stranger who had apparently played a significant role in Sarah's night. He made a mental note to look into Alex, to see if he could uncover any information about the enigmatic figure. As the hours ticked by, Elijah continued to listen to Sarah's story, probing gently for more information. But Sarah's account remained fragmented, with gaps in her memory that seemed to grow larger with each passing minute. Elijah's sense of unease grew, and he couldn't shake off the feeling that Sarah was hiding something big, just as Elijah was. Starting to think that he had heard enough, there was a knock at the door. It was a soft knock, almost hesitant, but it broke the spell that had been cast over the room. Elijah got up to answer it, his eyes scanning the alleyway before opening the door. To his surprise, it was a young man, tall and lean, with piercing green eyes that seemed to bore into Elijah's soul. I'm looking for someone, the man said, his voice low and smooth. A girl with long blonde hair. I think she might have come here. Elijah's instincts kicked in, and he blocked the doorway, his body tense. Who are you? He asked, his voice firm. The man's eyes flickered, and for a moment, Elijah thought he saw a flash of fear. But then, the man smiled, and his eyes seemed to gleam with amusement. My name is Alex, he said, and I'm looking for Sarah. Elijah's gut twisted with a sense of foreboding. This was the Alex that Sarah had been talking about, the mysterious stranger who had apparently played a significant role in her night. He stood his ground, his eyes locked on Alex's. I don't think she's ready to see you, he said. She's still processing some things. Alex's smile grew wider, and he leaned against the doorway, his eyes glinting with amusement. I'm afraid I need to see her, he said. It's urgent. Elijah's instinct screamed at him to keep Alex out, to protect Sarah from this stranger who seemed to be hiding something. But something about Alex's tone stayed in his hand. He stepped aside, allowing Alex to enter the shop. As Alex walked into the room, Sarah's eyes widened in fear. Alex, she whispered, her voice barely audible. What are you doing here? Alex's smile grew wider, and he walked over to Sarah, his eyes locked on hers. I think we need to talk, he said, his voice low and smooth. About last night. Sarah's eyes dropped, and she seemed to shrink into herself. Elijah's sense of unease grew, and he knew that this was just the beginning of a complex web of deceit. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on Alex's. Let's hear what you have to say, he said. But first, Alex, tell me, what exactly happened last night? Alex's smile faltered, and for a moment, Elijah thought he saw a flash of fear in his eyes. But then, Alex's mask slipped back into place, and he began to spin a tale of secrets, lies, and deceit. Elijah listened intently, his eyes never leaving Alex's face as the night wore on and the shadows in the alleyway grew longer and darker. The hours ticked by, and the confessions continued to flow. Elijah listened, his expression calm and non-judgmental, as Alex and Sarah recounted their stories. But Elijah's mind was racing, trying to piece together the puzzle that seemed to be unfolding before him. As the night wore on, as Alex spoke, Elijah's mind began to weave a complex web of connections. He listened intently, his eyes never leaving Alex's face as the story unfolded. Alex's account was smooth, almost too smooth, and Elijah's instincts told him that there was more to the story than what Alex was letting on. I met Sarah at the party, Alex said, his voice calm and collected. We were both drinking, and things got out of hand. I don't remember much, but I think we might have. You know, I've gotten intimate. Sarah's eyes dropped, and she seemed to shrink into herself. Elijah's eyes narrowed, his mind racing with questions. What exactly happened between Alex and Sarah? And what was Alex hiding? Elijah leaned forward, his eyes locked on Alex's. And what about the blood on Sarah's clothes? He asked, his voice firm. Alex's expression faltered, and for a moment, Elijah thought he saw a flash of fear in his eyes. I don't know what you're talking about, Alex said. His voice was smooth. Elijah's eyes never left Alex's face. Don't play dumb, Alex, he said. Sarah told me about the blood on her clothes. What happened that night? Alex's mask slipped, and, for a moment, Elijah saw a glimmer of something else, anger, perhaps, or desperation. But then, Alex's expression smoothed out, and he leaned back in his chair. I don't know what Sarah's talking about, he said, but I think she's trying to frame me for something. Sarah's eyes widened in outrage, and she stood up, her voice shaking with anger. That's not true, she exclaimed. You're the one who's been manipulating me all along. The room fell silent, the tension between Alex and Sarah palpable. Elijah watched, his eyes darting between the two, as the drama unfolded. He knew that he had to keep a level head, to untangle the threads of deceit that seemed to be wrapping around them all. As the silence stretched out, Elijah leaned forward, his eyes locked on Alex's. I think it's time we got to the bottom of this, he said. Sarah, tell me more about what happened that night. And Alex, I want you to listen carefully, because I'm only going to ask you this once. Sarah took a deep breath and began to recount her story once more. Elijah listened intently, his eyes never leaving her face as the tale unfolded. But this time, he noticed something different. A small detail, almost insignificant, but it caught his attention nonetheless. As Sarah spoke, Elijah's mind began to piece together the puzzle. He saw the threads of deceit that had been woven around them all, and he knew that he had to tread carefully. The truth was hidden, buried beneath layers of lies and half-truths. But Elijah was determined to uncover it, no matter what it took. The hours ticked by, and the confessions continued to flow. Elijah listened, his expression calm and non-judgmental, as Alex and Sarah recounted their stories. But Elijah's mind was racing, trying to untangle the threads of deceit that seemed to be wrapping around them all. As the night wore on, Elijah began to see a pattern emerge, a pattern of manipulation, of lies and half-truths. And at the center of it all was Alex, the enigmatic stranger who seemed to be hiding something big. Elijah's eyes narrowed, his mind racing with questions. What was Alex's true motive? And what was he hiding? Elijah knew that he had to find out, no matter what it took. As the first light of dawn began to creep into the sky, Elijah leaned forward, his eyes locked on Alex's. I think it's time we took a break, he said. But Alex, I want you to know that I'm watching you, and I will find out what's going on. Alex's smile faltered, and for a moment, Elijah saw a flash of fear in his eyes. But then, Alex's mask slipped back into place, and he stood up, his eyes glinting with amusement. I'm shaking in my boots, he said. Elijah's eyes never left Alex's face. He knew that he had to stay one step ahead, to uncover the truth before it was too late. And he was determined to do just that. The game was on, and Elijah was ready to play. But little did he know, the stakes were higher than he could ever have imagined. As Alex walked out of the shop, Elijah turned to Sarah, his eyes locked on hers. Sarah, I need to ask you something, he said. Do you trust me? Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with tears. Yes, I trust you, she said. Please, help me. Elijah's expression softened. Elijah's eyes locked on Sarah's, and he nodded gently. I will help you, Sarah, he said. But I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that? Sarah nodded again, her eyes filled with determination. I'll do anything, she said. Just please, help me figure out what happened that night. Elijah smiled softly. Okay, let's start with what we know, he said. You went to a party, met Alex, and things got out of hand. You don't remember much, but you woke up with blood on your clothes. Is that right? Sarah nodded, her eyes wide with fear. Yes, that's right, she said. Elijah leaned forward, his eyes locked on Sarah's. I think Alex is hiding something, he said, and I think we need to investigate him further. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. Investigate him? She repeated. What do you mean? Elijah smiled. I have some contacts who can help us dig up information on Alex, he said. Let's see if we can uncover any secrets about him. Sarah nodded. Her eyes filled with determination. Okay, let's do it, she said. Elijah nodded and pulled out his phone. He dialed a number and waited for the person to answer. Hey, it's Elijah, he said. I need some information on a guy named Alex. Can you dig up anything on him? There was a pause, and then Elijah nodded. Thanks, I'll owe you one, he said. Call me as soon as you find out anything. Elijah hung up the phone and turned to Sarah. Okay, let's wait and see what we can find out, he said. The hours ticked by, and Elijah and Sarah sat in silence, waiting for the phone to ring. Elijah's mind was racing with possibilities, and he couldn't shake off the feeling that they were in over their heads. Finally, the phone rang, and Elijah answered it. Yeah, he said. Elijah, it's me. The voice on the other end said, I found out some stuff about Alex. He's not who he says he is. Elijah's eyes locked on Sarah's, and he mouthed what? To her. She leaned forward, her eyes wide with curiosity. Who is he? Elijah asked. Alex is a rich kid, son of a wealthy businessman, the voice said. But here's the thing, he's been in trouble before. He's got a record, sealed of course, but I've got connections. He's been accused of assault. Maybe even worse. Elijah's eyes widened in shock. Assault? He repeated. What happened? There was a girl. A few years ago, the voice said. She accused him of rape, but the case was dropped. Rumor has it, the family paid her off. Elijah's gut twisted with a sense of foreboding. This was getting uglier by the minute. Thanks for the info, he said. I'll take it from here. Elijah hung up the phone and turned to Sarah. Sarah, I think we need to talk, he said. Sarah's eyes were wide with fear. What is it? She asked. Elijah took a deep breath. Alex has a record, he said. He's been accused of assault before. And I think we need to consider the possibility that he might have done something to you that night. Sarah's eyes dropped, and she seemed to shrink into herself. Elijah's heart went out to her, and he reached out, putting a hand on her shoulder. We'll get through this, Sarah, he said. I promise. But as they sat there, the shadows in the room seemed to grow longer and darker. Elijah knew that they were just beginning to scratch the surface of the truth, and he was determined to uncover it. No matter what it took. The game was on, and Elijah was ready to play. But little did he know, the stakes were higher than he could ever have imagined. As the sun began to set, Elijah stood up, his eyes locked on Sarah's. Let's go, he said. We need to confront Alex. Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with determination. I'm ready, she said. Elijah smiled softly. Let's do this, he said. Together, they walked out of the shop into the unknown. The truth was waiting for them, and Elijah was determined to uncover it. But as they walked, Elijah couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. He looked around, but there was no one there. The streets were empty. The only sound, the distant hum of traffic. Elijah's gut twisted with a sense of foreboding. Something was off, and he couldn't quite put his finger on it. But Elijah and Sarah walked to Alex's apartment, their hearts pounding with anticipation. Elijah had a plan, but he knew that things could go wrong at any moment. He glanced at Sarah, who was walking beside him, her eyes fixed on the ground. As they approached the apartment building, Elijah noticed that the front door was slightly ajar. He exchanged a wary glance with Sarah, and then pushed the door open slowly. Alex, Elijah called out, his voice echoing through the hallway. Are you here? There was no response, but Elijah could sense that someone was watching them. He moved cautiously, his eyes scanning the hallway for any signs of danger. Suddenly, Alex emerged from the shadows, a smirk on his face. Well, he said, his eyes glinting with amusement. Look what we have here. Elijah's eyes narrowed. Alex, we need to talk, he said, his voice firm. Alex chuckled. Oh, I'm shaking with anticipation, he said, his eyes darting between Elijah and Sarah. Elijah took a step forward, his eyes locked on Alex's. We know about your record, he said. We know about the allegations. Alex's smirk faltered, and for a moment, Elijah saw a flash of fear in his eyes. But then, Alex's mask slid back into place, and he laughed. You think you can take me down with a few allegations? He said. I'm a master of spin, Elijah. I'll come out on top, no matter what. Elijah's eyes never left Alex's face. We'll see about that, he said. Sarah, do you want to confront him? Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with determination. Alex, what did you do to me that night? She asked, her voice firm. Alex's smile grew wider, and he took a step closer to Sarah. I think you know exactly what happened, Sarah, he said, his voice dripping with menace. You were willing, weren't you? Elijah's gut twisted with anger, and he stepped forward, his fists clenched. But Sarah put a hand on his arm. Her eyes locked on Alex's. No, Elijah, she said. I want to handle this. Elijah nodded, and Sarah took a step forward, her eyes blazing with anger. You're going to pay for what you did, Alex, she said. I'm not going to let you get away with it. The air was electric with tension as Sarah and Alex faced off. Elijah watched, his heart pounding with anticipation, as the drama unfolded, and then, just as it seemed like things were about to escalate, the police arrived, responding to an anonymous tip. Alex's eyes widened in shock as the officers approached him, their hands on their guns. Alex, you're under arrest for the assault of Sarah, one of the officers said, his voice firm. Elijah watched as Alex was handcuffed and read his rights. He felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that justice was finally being served. As the officers led Alex away, Elijah turned to Sarah, his eyes locked on hers. It's over, he said, his voice soft. You're safe now. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Elijah, she said. Thank you for believing in me. Elijah smiled softly and wrapped his arms around her. You're welcome, Sarah, he said. You're safe now. The story of Sarah and Alex would continue to unfold, but for now, justice had been served, and Elijah knew that he had played a part in bringing it about. The midnight confessions had done its job, and Elijah felt a sense of pride and satisfaction. He had listened, he had believed, and he had helped bring justice to those who needed it. As Elijah and Sarah walked out of the apartment building, the sun was rising over the city. A new day was dawning, and Elijah knew that it would bring new challenges and new opportunities, but for now, he was content to stand with Sarah, holding her hand and watching as justice was served. The midnight confessions had changed lives, and Elijah knew that he would continue to be a part of it, listening and helping those who needed it. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.